I never thought the people who gave me life would turn their backs on me when I needed them most. I was 21, a law student in my junior year at Columbia, juggling classes, internships, and the impossible workload that came with wanting to make something of myself. My parents, Richard and Laura, were proud of the perfect daughter they'd raised. Or at least, they were until I told them I was pregnant. When I first found out, I was terrified. My boyfriend, Adam, was also studying law, and we had plans: internships at big firms, networking events, a shared future that looked bright on paper. But that second pink line changed everything. Adam panicked. He said he loved me, but he wasn't ready to be a dad. He wanted me to take care of it, quietly. I couldn't. I told him I was keeping the baby, and by the look in his eyes, I knew I'd just lost him. My parents didn't take the news any better. When I went home to tell them, Mom crossed her arms, her face turning cold in a way I'd never seen before. "You're throwing your life away?" she said. Dad didn't say a word. He just stared at me like I was a stranger. I told them I was still finishing school, that I could make it work. Mom laughed bitterly. "Do you have any idea how hard it is to be a single mother? Do you know what people will think?" That's when I realized it wasn't about me at all. It was about them. Their reputation, their friends, their image of success. When I refused to fix my mistake, they disowned me. Just like that, they told me to pack my things and leave the house. "You made your choice," Dad said. "Now live with it." I left that night with one suitcase, a few $100s, and a heart that felt like it had been ripped open. I moved into a tiny studio apartment near campus. It was barely big enough for me, let alone a baby, but it was all I could afford. I worked nights at a diner, and attended classes during the day, barely sleeping, often crying quietly in the bathroom between shifts. My professors noticed I was slipping, but I refused to quit. I was determined to prove everyone wrong, to show my parents, Adam, and even myself that I could do this. When my daughter, Lily, was born, everything changed. Holding her for the first time made all the pain worth it. She was perfect, tiny, fragile, and mine. She gave me a reason to keep going. I studied while she slept, rocked her while reading case law, and learned how to file motions while mixing formula. The exhaustion was bone deep, but the love I felt for her kept me alive. Years went by, and I graduated with honors. No one came to my graduation. I looked out at the sea of families cheering for their children, and felt that familiar achy. But Lily's smile from the audience made it bearable. After law school, I landed a job at a mid-sized firm that specialized in family law. Maybe it was poetic. After being abandoned by my own family, I wanted to fight for people who needed someone in their corner. I became damn good at it, too. I worked my way up, case after case, until I became partner. The firm wasn't the biggest in New York, but it was mine. Lily grew up into a kind, bright girl, top of her class, full of warmth I could only hope she'd learned from me, not from the people who had turned us away. For years, I didn't hear from my parents. They'd erased me from their lives. But the universe has a strange way of circling back. One night, as I was finishing paperwork at the office, I got a call from an unknown number. When I picked up, I froze at the sound of the voice. "Mary." It was my mother. Her tone was soft, uncertain, like she was testing the waters. I hadn't heard her voice in over a decade. "Mom," I said cautiously. "Why are you calling?" There was a pause, then a shaky sigh. "Your father's business isn't doing well. We've fallen on some hard times. And, well, we heard about your success. We're proud of you." I almost laughed. Proud? Of what? The daughter they threw out because she wouldn't destroy her child. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. Mom hesitated. "Your niece, Claire. She's been having trouble conceiving. You know how much family means to us. We were hoping Lily might." I felt my blood run cold. "Might what?" I demanded. "You can't be serious. Just listen," she said quickly. "It's not like that. Claire just needs an egg donor, someone healthy and related." We thought it would be a beautiful way to reconnect the family. That was the moment something in me snapped. I sat there in silence for a few seconds, gripping the edge of my desk so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mother's voice droned on about family, and forgiveness and new beginnings. But I barely heard any of it. All I could think about was how she'd stood there years ago, watching me pack my things, while she told me I was no longer welcome in her house. And now she wanted a piece of the life I'd built from the ashes she and my father left behind. "You want my daughter's DNA," I finally said, my voice low and steady. "After you threw us both away." Mom's tone turned defensive. "Don't make it sound so dramatic, Mary. We did what we thought was best for you. You were too young, too naive." "No," I interrupted, my anger breaking through. "You did what was best for you. You were worried about what your friends would say, not what would happen to me. You turned your back on me when I needed you most. And now you want me to hand over my child, for your family's convenience." "It's not like that," she said weakly. But the tremor in her voice told me she knew exactly how it sounded. "Your sister's been through a lot. You could help her, Mary. You have the chance to do something good. You mean you have the chance to feel like decent people again?" I snapped. "But you're about 15 years too late for that." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. But there was something else bubbling under the surface. A kind of grim satisfaction. For years, they'd made me feel small, worthless. Like I was some mistake they needed to erase. But now they needed me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by Lily's door and listened to her breathing, thinking about everything we'd been through. She was 12 now, strong and confident, everything I'd hoped she'd be. She didn't know much about my parents, beyond the fact that they weren't part of our lives. I'd shielded her from that pain, and I had no intention of letting it touch her now. A few days later, my father showed up at my office. I saw him through the glass door. The same man who'd told me I wasn't welcome in his home, now standing nervously in the waiting area like a lost child. My assistant looked at me questioningly, and I nodded for her to let him in. "Mary," he said as he sat down, his eyes darting around the room like he couldn't quite believe where he was. "You've done well for yourself." "Thanks," I said coldly. "I worked hard for it." He nodded, his lips pressed together. "We made mistakes," he began. "Your mother and I, we thought we were doing what was right. We didn't mean to hurt you." "You meant every word," I replied. "You told me I made my bed and had to lie in it. And I did. Alone." He flinched but didn't argue. "Your mother's not well," he said after a moment. "The stress has been getting to her. And Claire, she's desperate. Mary, please. If there's any way you could help La." I leaned back, folding my arms. "You know what's funny? For years, I used to imagine what it would feel like to hear you apologize. I thought maybe I'd cry or feel some kind of closure. But now that it's actually happening, all I feel is nothing." He looked down, shame flickering across his face. "You're our daughter," he murmured. "You'll always be our daughter." I gave a bitter laugh. "No. You made sure that stopped being true the day you locked the door behind me." He tried one last time. "Can't we move past this? For the family?" "You mean your family?" I said. "Because mine is just fine." I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. "We're done here." He hesitated, then stood and walked out without another word. I closed the door behind him, my hands trembling. But this time it wasn't from sadness. It was from power. For years, they'd made me feel powerless, like my existence was a disappointment. But now the tables had turned. They'd spent all those years living in comfort, while I was clawing my way up from nothing. And now they were the ones begging. I wasn't sure yet how, but I knew this wasn't the last I'd hear from them. And I was right. A week later, I got an invitation in the mail. A thick white envelope with my parents' address embossed in gold lettering. Inside was an invitation to a family gathering. The note said they wanted to make amends, that it was time to put the past behind us. There was even a handwritten message from my mother: "Please, Mary, come. Let's be a family again." I stared at it for a long time, my chest tight with old anger and fresh curiosity. After everything, they still thought they could pull the strings. But this time, I had the power, and I wasn't about to waste it. I smiled, folded the invitation neatly, and placed it in my drawer. Sure, Mom. I whispered to myself. Let's be a family again. The day of the family gathering came faster than I expected. I debated going at all. Every part of me screamed that it was a trap, another performance for appearances. But the lawyer in me, the part that thrived on evidence and confrontation, needed to see it through. I needed to look them in the eyes and show them exactly what they lost. I spent the morning getting ready in my sleek black suit, the one I wore when I needed to remind judges and clients alike that I was in control. Lily begged to come, but I told her no. I didn't trust them, and she didn't deserve to be anywhere near the kind of people who'd discarded us. It's just family stuff. Honey, I told her. I'll be back soon. She frowned but nodded, hugging me tight before I left. The drive to my parents' house was surreal. It had been almost 15 years since I'd last seen it. The neighborhood looked smaller now, like the world had outgrown it. When I pulled up, their house looked as pristine as ever. White columns, manicured hedges, and the same pretentious fountain in the front yard. But up close, I could see cracks in the paint, weeds sneaking through the driveway. It was like a metaphor for them, still putting on a show, but falling apart underneath. When I rang the doorbell, my mother opened the door. For a second, we just stared at each other. She'd aged, but the sharpness in her eyes was still there. Mary, she said softly, almost rehearsed. You look successful. You look exactly the same, I said, stepping inside. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and denial. My father was sitting in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper. My sister Claire sat next to him, perfectly dressed, smiling like she was on camera. Mary, she said, standing up to hug me, though the gesture felt stiff. It's been forever. 15 years. I said coolly. But who's counting? The air was thick with unspoken tension. My mother clapped her hands like a hostess trying to diffuse a scene. Let's all sit down and have lunch. We've made roast chicken. Your favorite. Funny, I said, taking my seat. You remembered that, but not my birthday. My father cleared his throat. Let's not start with hostility. We invited you here because we want to make things right. Do you? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Because from what I remember, the last time we spoke, you were asking me for my daughter's eggs. My mother winced. That came out wrong, she said quickly. We were desperate, Mary. Claire has been through so much. We've all been through things. I cut in. But not everyone decides to abandon their child over it. Claire's face hardened. You don't have to be cruel, she said. I didn't do anything to you. I laughed coldly. You stood there when they kicked me out. You watched it happen. You did nothing. So don't talk to me about cruelty. She looked away, her lips tight. My father sighed heavily. We can't change the past, Mary. But maybe we can start over. We miss you. We miss Lily. That name in his mouth made me flinch. You don't get to say her name, I said quietly. You don't even know her. You never cared enough to meet her. My mother reached across the table, her voice soft. We made mistakes, sweetheart. But we can fix this. You've built a good life, and so have we. We could help each other. I stared at her, realizing what this was really about. It wasn't about love or guilt. It was about control. About money. They'd heard about my firm, my success, and now they wanted a piece of it. You want money, I said flatly. The silence that followed said everything. My father shifted uncomfortably, my mother's expression faltered, and Claire's eyes flicked away. I almost laughed. This is unbelievable. You disown me when I have nothing? And now you want to reconnect. Because I made something of myself. We're not asking for handouts, my father said sharply. We're offering to rebuild our relationship. And what does that cost? I asked. A loan for your failing business. A trust fund for Claire's future kids. My mother's lips trembled. We just thought it would be good for Lily to have family. She has family, I said, standing up. Me? Claire's voice rose, frustration creeping through her perfect tone. Why are you being so dramatic? We're trying to move past this. You've clearly done well. Can't you just let it go? I turned to her, years of anger finally boiling over. You think this is about holding a grudge? You have no idea what it's like to be thrown out with nowhere to go, pregnant and alone, while your family pretends you don't exist. You don't get to rewrite that because it's inconvenient for you now. My words hung in the air like a slap. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw something in Claire's eyes that looked like guilt. Or maybe fear. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. No. You don't get to speak. You had every opportunity to stand up for me, and you didn't. You stayed quiet, because it was easier to let me suffer than to upset your perfect little world. I turned back to my mother. And you? How dare you sit here and talk about family like it means something to you? You made sure I knew exactly how replaceable I was when you slammed that door behind me. We were scared, my mother said finally, her voice trembling. You were young, and we thought we were doing the right thing. You thought about your reputation, I snapped. You were more worried about what your church friends would whisper than about your own daughter sleeping on a mattress in a one-bedroom apartment, trying to keep food on the table for her baby. My father stood suddenly, his chair scraping the floor. "'Nuff," he barked. You can't keep blaming us for your choices. You decided to keep that child. You decided to struggle. We did what any parents would do, tried to protect our family. You didn't protect your family, I said coldly. You destroyed it. He glared at me. But there was no strength behind it anymore. He looked like a man who'd already lost everything, and was only now realizing it. I turned to leave, but my mother caught my wrist. "Please, Mary. Don't go. We can fix this. We can make things right." I pulled my hand away slowly. You can't fix 15 years of abandonment with one awkward lunch. You can't buy forgiveness, Mom. Not with apologies, not with money, not with fake family dinners. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking, but beneath the fury, there was something else. Calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't the broken one in the story. They were. On the drive home, I thought about Lily and the life I'd built for us. Every tear, every sleepless night, every humiliating shift at that diner, it had all led to this. I'd built something they couldn't touch, and I wasn't about to let them poison it. But the thing about people like my parents is, they don't take rejection well. A few weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number again. I ignored it at first, but it kept ringing. Finally, I answered, and immediately wished I hadn't. "Mary," my mother said, her voice shaking, "please don't hang up. It's your father. He's in trouble." I hesitated. "What kind of trouble?" she sniffled. "The business. He took out loans to try to keep it running. But it's worse than we thought. They're talking about legal action. You're a lawyer. You could help him." There it was. The real reason for all of this. They didn't want forgiveness, they wanted rescue. "You're unbelievable," I said, letting out a bitter laugh. "You kicked me out to protect your image. And now you want me to clean up your mess, because I made something of myself. He's still your father," she pleaded. "You can't just let him go to prison." "He let me go homeless," I said flatly. "He let me cry myself to sleep pregnant and scared, while you both pretended I didn't exist. Maybe you should call Claire's husband." "Oh wait, I forgot. He left her for his assistant, didn't he?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Don't ever call me again," I said, and hung up. But the next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because I felt bad for them. No. That ship had sailed a long time ago. But because I realized I had an opportunity. They'd built their lives on reputation, appearances, and control. And now, for the first time, I held all of it in my hands. So I did what any good lawyer would do. I started digging. Their business, a chain of boutique home stores, was drowning in debt. They'd taken out multiple loans under the table, some in Claire's name. There were lawsuits pending, unpaid taxes, and more than one supplier threatening to sue. They were one bad headline away from total ruin. And that's when the idea came to me. A way to make them feel exactly what I had felt all those years ago. Powerless. Desperate. Alone. I reached out to a contact at a major real estate investment group that had been eyeing their property for years. I made a few calls, pulled a few strings, and within weeks, a deal was in motion. My firm would handle the legal paperwork for the acquisition. It was perfectly legitimate, and completely devastating for my parents. They'd lose their business, their income, and the one thing they cared about most, their image. I told myself it was justice, not revenge. But deep down, I knew it was both. The day the papers went through, I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. My mother called me that night, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to us?" she cried. "You've ruined us." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "You did that when you decided I wasn't your daughter anymore." And then I hung up for the last time. The night after I ended their business, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, staring out at the city lights. My apartment overlooked downtown, floor-to-ceiling windows, skyline view. The kind of place I used to dream about when I was 19, and crying into a cheap pillow in a freezing apartment. Now, it was mine. Every inch of it was a monument to survival. But as I sat there, something unexpected happened. I started to cry. Not out of regret. God. No. But because the finality of it all hit me. My parents were finished. I'd taken everything they built and turned it to ash. And yet, the little girl inside me, who once begged for their love, was still whispering, "They're your mom and dad." I wiped the tears away angrily. "They made their choice," I muttered. "So did I." The next morning, I woke to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. Lily was sitting at the counter, scrolling on her phone and laughing at some TikTok. She looked up at me, smiling. "Morning, Mom. You're up early." I smiled back. She was 16 now, smart, funny, independent, everything I had hoped she'd be. "Yeah," I said, pouring myself coffee. "Just couldn't sleep." She frowned. "You okay? You've been kinda tense lately." I hesitated. She didn't know about her grandparents. I never told her the full story, only that we weren't close. But Lily was too smart for vague answers. "It's nothing," I said finally. "Just work stuff." "You always say that," she said, grinning. "I'm starting to think your job is way more dramatic than you let on." I laughed softly. "You have no idea." After she left for school, I sat down at my desk and tried to focus on my casework, but my mind kept drifting. The satisfaction I'd felt was already fading, replaced by something murkier. Not guilt, just unease. I told myself it didn't matter. They deserved worse. Still, when I saw their faces in the news a few days later, local paper, front page, local business family declares bankruptcy, something inside me twisted. The article mentioned unpaid debts, lawsuits, asset liquidation. It was brutal. And beneath all that ruin, I could practically hear my mother's voice. "What will people think?" That night, there was a knock on my door. I almost didn't answer. But when I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. It was her. My mother stood there, thinner than I remembered, her hair grayer, her eyes hollow. I opened the door slowly. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She looked past me into the apartment, eyes wide. "You've done well for yourself," she said quietly. "It's beautiful." "Why are you here?" I repeated, my voice sharper this time. She clasped her hands together like she was praying. "I know you hate us. And you have every reason to. But please, Mary, I'm begging you. Don't take it out on Claire." I frowned. "Claire. She didn't know what you were planning," my mother said quickly. "She's lost everything too. Her husband left. She's drowning in debt. She's not strong like you. She can't survive this." I crossed my arms. "You should have thought of that before you turned your back on me. Please," she whispered. "Don't let her suffer for our mistakes." I stared at her for a long moment. Then, without a word, I stepped aside. "Come in." She looked startled but obeyed. As she stepped into my home, she glanced around, probably comparing it to her own now empty house. I led her to the living room. "Sit." She sat, wringing her hands. "I didn't come to ask for money," she said quickly. or forgiveness. I just wanted to see you. To see that you're okay. I let out a humorless laugh. Now you care. She flinched. I've always cared. I just didn't know how to fix it. You could have started by not throwing your pregnant daughter out like garbage. I snapped. You could have stood up to him, told him he was wrong. You could have done anything but nothing. Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared. She whispered. Your father. He. Save it? I said sharply. I don't care what his excuses were. You went along with it. You let it happen. We sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, she stood. You don't owe us anything. I just needed to see you once more. She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, I said, wait. She froze. Does Claire know you're here? No, she said. She wouldn't understand. I nodded slowly. Tell her to call me. Just her. Not you, not Dad. Her. My mother blinked, confused but hopeful. You'll talk to her. We'll see, I said. She nodded and left without another word. When the door closed, I exhaled slowly. I didn't know why I said that. Maybe part of me wanted to see if Claire had changed. Or maybe I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. Either way, 2 days later, I got a text. It was short. It's Claire. Mom said to call. Please. We met at a cafe downtown. She looked older too, tired, but still carried that air of superiority that had always annoyed me. You look good, she said, awkwardly. You too. I lied. We sat there for a minute in silence until she finally said, I'm sorry. I didn't respond. She went on. For not standing up for you. For being a coward. I should have done better. You should have. I agreed. But you didn't. I know, she said, her voice cracking. And now I'm paying for it. My marriage is gone, my house is gone, everything. I just wish I'd been more like you. I raised an eyebrow. Like me? Strong, she said softly. You built something from nothing. I had everything and lost it because I was too scared to take a stand. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. You know what strength looks like, Claire? I said finally. It's sitting in a tiny apartment with a baby you didn't plan for. Counting quarters to buy diapers, and still getting up the next morning to study for law exams. It's walking into court every day and winning cases when everyone expects you to fail. It's doing it alone, without anyone's help, because the people who should have been there walked away. She nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. You're right. And I'm sorry. But please, Mary, don't destroy what's left of our family. I leaned back, studying her. You still think there's a family left? She didn't answer. Just sat there, crying silently. I sighed. Look, I'm not a monster. I didn't ruin you. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own choices. She nodded weakly. I know. I stood. Then learn from it. Don't be like them. Be better. As I walked away, I didn't look back. I told myself that was closure, that I could finally move on. But fate had one more twist waiting for me. A few months later, Lily came home from school holding an envelope. This came to the office, she said. For me. I frowned. From who? She handed it to me. The handwriting was familiar. Elegant cursive, the kind my mother used on birthday cards when I was little. I tore it open and felt my heart drop as I read. Dear Lily, I know we've never met, but I'm your grandmother. I've made mistakes. But I'd like the chance to know you. Please don't let the past between your mother and us keep you from learning who we are. We love you. Even if we didn't show it right, there was an address, a phone number. My blood boiled. Did you read this? I asked. Yeah, Lily said cautiously. I didn't answer or anything, I swear. But Mom, she's my grandmother. Don't I have the right to know her? I closed my eyes, gripping the letter tightly. She doesn't deserve you, I said quietly. She's dangerous, Lily frowned. Dangerous? Mom, she's old. She just wants to talk. You don't understand, I said sharply. She's not what she seems. Then explain it, she shouted suddenly. You never tell me anything. You just expect me to hate people I've never met. The words hit like a punch. She stormed off before I could respond, slamming her bedroom door. I stood there, shaking, the letter still in my hand. For the first time in years, I felt powerless again. They'd found a way back into my life. Not through me, but through my daughter. And that was something I couldn't allow. Not again. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room, staring at the letter on the coffee table. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's face. Hurt, confused, desperate to understand. I couldn't blame her. She'd grown up without extended family, because I'd kept that door sealed shut. But now they were trying to slip back in through the cracks, pretending decades of cruelty could be erased with one carefully written letter. Around 3 a.m., I decided enough was enough. They wanted a reunion. Fine. But it would be on my terms. The next morning, I called the number on the letter. It rang twice before my mother's voice came on, soft and trembling. "Hello. It's Mary," I said coldly. "Oh, Mary! Thank God save it." I cut her off. "You went behind my back and contacted my daughter. You crossed a line." "Please don't be angry," she said quickly. "We just wanted to know her. She's family." I laughed bitterly. "Family? You disowned me when I was 5 months pregnant. You told me I'd ruined your name, that I was dead to you. And now you want to play doting grandparents." "We were wrong," she whispered. "We've changed." "No," I said. "You've lost everything, that's the difference." There was silence on the line. Finally, she said, "Can we meet? Just once." "Please, Mary," I hesitated. "Fine, one meeting. Tomorrow. Noon. My office." I hung up before she could answer. When Lily came home that evening, I told her we'd talk. She looked cautious but curious. "Are you mad?" she asked. "I'm not mad," I said carefully. "But you need to understand why I've kept you away from them." She sat beside me. And for the first time, I told her everything. About how I got pregnant in college, how her father left, how my parents threw me out and pretended I didn't exist. I told her about the years I spent scraping by, the hunger, the shame, the loneliness. And I told her how I built my career piece by piece, until I had everything they said I'd never achieve. When I finished, her eyes were red. "They really did that to you," she whispered. "Yeah," I said softly. "And now they want to come back, because they think you're their ticket to redemption." Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Can I come to the meeting?" I blinked. "You want to see them?" "I need to," she said firmly. "If I don't, I'll always wonder." I hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. But I run the show. You follow my lead." The next day, they arrived right on time. My parents walked into my office like strangers in a museum, staring at the marble floors, the city view, the awards on my wall. My father looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders stooped, suit too loose. My mother clutched her purse like it was a lifeline. And then Lily walked in. My mother gasped. "Oh my God, she's beautiful." Lily smiled politely but stayed close to me. My father cleared his throat. "Mary," he said stiffly. "You've done well." I leaned back in my chair. "You don't get to be proud of me." He winced. My mother tried to smooth things over. "We didn't come to fight," she said. "We just want to know our granddaughter." "You want access," I corrected. "You want to play grandparents of the year, after ignoring her existence for 16 years. My father sighed. "We were harsh, I admit, but time changes people." "No," I said flatly. "Time exposes people." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Mary. We're not asking for money or favors. We just want to be part of her life. Let us make it right." I looked at Lily. She was watching them carefully, studying every word. "You want to make it right," I said slowly. "Then admit what you did." My father frowned. "What?" "Say it," I said. "Tell your granddaughter why she never had grandparents. Tell her why her mother spent nights crying on the floor of a 1-bedroom apartment while studying for the bar exam." He shifted uncomfortably. "That was a long time ago." "Not long enough," I snapped. "Say it." He opened his mouth, but my mother spoke first. "We were ashamed," she whispered. "We cared more about what people thought than our own daughter, and it destroyed our family." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry." My father said nothing, just stared at the floor. The silence stretched until Lily said quietly, "I think that's all I needed to hear." My mother looked at her desperately. "Please, sweetheart. Don't call me that." Lily interrupted, her tone calm but cutting. "You don't get to act like we're close. You hurt my mom. You don't deserve her forgiveness." My mother started to cry. My father finally looked up. "Enough. We've said what we came to say." He stood, straightening his jacket. "We'll leave." "No," I said. "You'll listen?" I stood too. "You're not walking out of here pretending this was closure. You don't get to rewrite history. You left me to die in every way that mattered, and now you want a relationship, because it makes you feel better about yourselves. But here's the truth. You don't get redemption through my daughter." My mother sobbed quietly. My father's jaw tightened. "You've made your point." "No," I said, stepping closer. "I'm just getting started. I used to think forgiveness made you strong. That letting go was the mature thing to do. But I've learned something else. Sometimes strength means making sure the people who broke you never get the chance to do it again." I turned to Lily. "Let's go." We walked out, leaving them sitting in silence. I didn't look back. Outside, Lily slipped her arm through mine. "You okay?" she asked. I smiled faintly. "Yeah. For the first time, I think I am." The next few weeks passed quietly. My parents didn't try to contact us again. But one afternoon, I got an email from a local reporter. He was writing a feature on influential women in law, and wanted to include me. I agreed. When the article came out, it painted a vivid picture: my rise from abandonment to success, my devotion to my daughter, my refusal to let failure define me. I hadn't named my parents, but anyone who knew our story would recognize the truth. It went viral. People called it the comeback of the century. That night, I got one last message, from an unknown number. "We read the article. We're proud of you." I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. No response. No anger. Just peace. Months later, on Lily's 17th birthday, we were sitting on the balcony, watching the city lights, when she said, "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" I thought about it. The pain, the loneliness, the years of struggle. Then I looked at her, my beautiful, strong, fearless daughter, and smiled. "No," I said. "Because if they hadn't disowned me, I never would have built this life, and I never would have learned that the best revenge is living so well they can't touch you anymore." She grinned. "That's kind of badass, Mom." I laughed. "Yeah, it is." We clinked our glasses of sparkling juice and watched the skyline glow. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably reading about me again, wondering how the daughter they threw away became the woman they couldn't ignore. And maybe, just maybe, they realized the truth: they didn't destroy me, they built me,